Take us through this Jazz trade, man. Three prospects coming back. Agustín Ramírez, Jared Serna, and Abraham Ramírez. Three different guys on three different levels at this moment in their career.
Yeah, I think they did pretty well. I wonder if we'll find out a little bit about what those other packages may have been with other teams, but apparently there were a few competitive ones. Ramirez is someone that I think is to Eli's point, and I know it's like frustrating when you're trying to I think show people that this is a package that actually makes sense for the Marlins. It can be a package that actually helps them, in the near future. But the most publicly available prospect ranking, is going to kind of mislead you a little bit at this point. But I think he's been as big of a climber as just about anybody in the minor leagues this year because he has shown some improvements with the glove behind the dish, and the Yankees have been pretty good at getting guys, at least to be passable there. Austin Wells was not a good catcher in the early going. Ben Rice, I know they're using him at first, but that's more just because he's needed more there. He was not a good catcher and had barely played in college before, getting up to the big leagues, and he got to a passable point. And I think Agustín Ramírez at this point is passable. I don't know how much better he can get. It's more fundamentals, I think, than just the instincts. But yeah, I do think he's good enough. He does have a good arm back there, but of course, it's all about the power. And this is a bat that instantly, from an exit velocity standpoint, would be one of the higher in the entire organization. The contact rates are pretty solid. The one thing that was kind of holding him back in the past was he wasn't elevating enough. Now he's cut down on the ground ball rate, and we saw the 20 home runs this year. Since he got to AAA, ground ball rate started to elevate a little bit. So it's going to have to make that adjustment. But a lot of guys that I've talked to have said that, yes, the numbers are inflated in AAA, but the younger hitters, for them, it is a big adjustment because of just how different the type of pitching they're seeing, the way that they attack you, and also just the zones and the way that the strike zones have been for guys, and it's kind of an unfamiliar thing for them. So I think Ramirez will continue to make that adjustment, and I think he's proven this year that he's got plus power, and even if he's a fringy catcher, the Marlins just need bats like that, and I do think that Ramirez's bat is more transferable to the big league level than like a Davis and De Los Santos. So it is just a great add, into the fold, just in case De Los Santos doesn't totally translate. Even if Ramirez, really backs up defensively, I think he is a higher probability just regular with the bat as well.
Just take us through a little bit of Jared Serna as well. It feels like a guy who could potentially stick at shortstop, a little power hitter as well. 13 homers already on the season. Just talk to us about him, and then the FCL player. I believe it's Abraham Ramirez.
Yeah, so Serna is a guy that we highlighted in the AL East like trade preview episode, just because it was not a Jazz deal. It was actually a like Tanner Scott plus a piece or two. And I just felt like he makes a lot of sense because he's a little bit of an extra piece for the Yankees, but for the Marlins, the way that he has trended this year, I think really bodes well for what they need, which is he slimmed down a little bit. His footwork has gotten a lot better at shortstop. So a guy that one time looked like he was probably going to be more of that second base / utility piece looks like he can actually play a viable shortstop. The field of hit is really good. It backed up a little bit last year, but has really been better overall this season. And he's added power. What I always like to look at is the 90th percentile exit velocity. Takes the top 10% of your batted balls from an exit velocity standpoint. And it really just kind of shows how much more frequently you're getting into your top end power and what that looks like. He's jumped more than 2 miles per hour in that regard, which I think is really good. He pulls the ball in the air a good deal for a player that's smaller in stature. So I think that gives him a chance to be able to tap into a little bit more juice. So if he's able to stick it short, I mean, that really helps. But there's a chance he could be, an average regular up the middle, and he's going to finish the year in AA, and next year, probably start there, but has a chance to potentially get up to the big leagues, sometime next season. They needed middle infield depth too. So you get a guy that'll probably be your starting catcher next year. I don't see why they would try anything else at that point. And another guy that, you could dream on potentially filling up the middle at some point next season. They both have to, I think progress a little bit further. Of course, Serna a little bit further off, but I think you got to feel pretty good about that, especially given where the Marlins farm system's at. And I mean, you look at shortstop right now, who the heck was going to play for them at shortstop next year? You look at the free agents, there was not going to be a very obvious solution there. So at least there's someone down the line a little bit that you can at least dream on, another iron in the fire, because they really didn't have any.
Yeah. Carver, Ely, anything you guys have for Aram?
No, I mean it's just I don't want to go back to what I said before, but like the Marlins were obviously, from what we've heard, the Marlins were targeting a catcher, and my reservation is that they got a catcher that may not and likely won't, from everything that I have read, stick at catcher. So, what is the likelihood that he sticks at catcher?
I think he can. He's 22. He's continued to progress, and again, I think with the way the game's trended, like if you're athletic and you can block, I think if you're able to swing it the way that he's capable of swinging it, I think he's more than fine enough. We'll see. I know that there's a level of the way Bendix likes to approach it. I don't think they care about offense as much behind the dish. I think that's very clear if you look at the Rays and you look at the Marlins. But I also think that they need to take and acquire offense any way they can get it. And I do think that he's passable there. I put a 40 on the glove. I've talked to some scouts that also have a 40 on the glove. So like if it's a 40 glove with plus offense from that position, which I think you can very easily dream on, and he splits time, maybe at first base slash DH slash catcher, and you have a backup that's very defensive minded and strong in that regard. I think you can make it work there. And again, I think he's a better option than anything they could have feasibly put together or found, in the next 6 months to 8 months before next season. I think a 40 glove there with his offensive potential is more than enough, and he's still, again, just 22.
Well, Aram, where are you at with Spencer Jones? Because the
Yeah.
perception of this trade would be a whole lot different if it was headlined by Spencer Jones instead of Ramírez. But I mean, they both started this year at Double A, and while Ramírez raked, they're the same age too. In fact, I think Ramírez is a little bit younger. Started at Double A, same like similar age, and Jones has this like catastrophic strikeout rate right now, and he's still stuck at Double A. And when I was telling people that Spencer Jones would be a really interesting centerpiece here, that the pushback was that's totally unrealistic. He's untouchable. Would you feel? Do you think the Marlins would be a lot better off with Jones, or has the gap really closed that much between these two guys this year?
I think the gap has closed. I think it's a great question too. I think there's just a higher likelihood that Spencer Jones gives you nothing. I mean, there's also the upside that he gives you a lot more, right? A guy that has plus raw power, is an absolute athlete for a 6'7" guy, can play a good center field or at least a solid center field, and absolutely can steal bases. But I mean, I think you're looking at contact rates that are just so far off at this point. And this is a guy that I was really excited about, and probably one of my bigger misses in a little bit, because I felt like the progress that he had made mechanically could translate. But I'm kind of concerned at this point that he's just gotten so far away from the athleticism and trying to be, more of a contact, just trying to make more contact, that he's become more mechanical. And I think it's going to take a lot of development and a lot of adjustments in the offseason, and we'll see how he comes back. But the Yankees have been one of the better in regards to getting their players' swings right through the minor leagues, helping them achieve what they need to achieve, both from an elevation standpoint and maybe hedging weaknesses. And the fact that they've been kind of stuck with Jones over the last couple years. Just every time it seems like he's starting to break through, he takes a step back. There's not a lot of adjustability there with the swing, and the out of zone contact rates are really low, which does not bode well when you also chase at a pretty high clip. I'm concerned that it might not all come together for him, as exciting as the profile is. And if you're the Marlins, sure, you could have a little bit more reward on the back end there if it all works out, but the Yankees are ahead of you when it comes to development. I know they're getting there. The Marlins are progressing, and you're going to now put them into an environment that's probably even less helpful. And it's been pretty ugly for him this year. So I think you take the piece that is very likely to at least serve some sort of big league role for you as soon as next year, as instead of a guy that, very well could stall out in Double A, and you don't have much to show for Jazz Chisholm, which would be tough. And I do think when you look at the power perspective, the exit velocities are pretty much the same. You have a guy in Agustín Ramírez who's tapping into the game power a little bit more. Of course, you're compromising athleticism here, but it's not like you're hoping that he can play third base. You're hoping that he can catch, and that's a position that they desperately need. So I actually think they're better off with Ramírez.